So on one of our recent videos about the debt-free lifestyle, we got this question.
Spoly, S-P-O-L-Y, 813. It is so kind of you to take the time to explain the debt-free life and answering questions. I have a question that I hope you can address. Does living debt-free mean you never use a credit card to take out a loan, auto, or home, and you pay cash for everything? If so, how does that impact your credit or FICO score? I know in order to rent an apartment, buy a car, or apply for a mortgage, the first thing that they do is check your credit and FICO scores. I have a very high FICO score, over 800, and I'm afraid that if I totally stop using credit cards, my score will drop significantly. Any advice or comments on how to manage that? Thanks again for all your help.
Yes, very good question.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah.
Wow. Well, hey everybody, I'm Bill.
And I'm Elizabeth. Live simple.
Live free. And this is a very good question, and she put it so perfectly.
Yes, yes.
So we want to address this.
Our channel is called Live Simple, Live Free, and an awful lot of that is about the freedom there is in not having debt. So we feel like it's really important when something as good as this comes up that we do try to do our best to address it.
Yeah, and we really want to address two issues in this video. One is specifically, what is her question? How do you manage your FICO score, and is that important? And the other one would be, is it possible to actually pay cash for a house? And to which I will give you the very short answer, yes it is. So let's talk about that. Yeah, the FICO score is very important if you want to even just rent an apartment nowadays. Most landlords will look at your FICO score. If you want to get a mortgage or anything like that, they're going to look at your FICO score, which goes directly against everything that we're teaching of living debt-free and living on a cash basis. Because if you stop using credit, you won't have bad credit, you just won't have any credit.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, I think our credit score is probably fairly low, just simply because we don't use credit. And that's exactly what she's asking here.
Right.
So how do you address that, especially if you know that you want to buy a house soon, or that you're a renter and you're going to move soon? What do you do about that?
Well, and if you're young and just getting started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's important to maintain your FICO score, your credit score, but you don't want to be running up debts. So basically the way you do it is you have 3 or 4 credit cards and you use all of them, and you make sure that you pay all of them off every single month, totally. And sometimes I hear people being concerned about, well, if I pay it off every month, the credit card company is going to cancel my account.
Well, they don't usually.
They don't usually, but if that's your concern, then use your credit card and pay it off, but leave $100 balance every month. And if you do that and you just maintain, so if you charge $600 during the month for groceries and all kinds of stuff, pay off $500 of it, leave a $100 balance.
And that doesn't mean you add another $100 balance every month.
No, just maintain that 100.
Yeah.
You'll pay a little bit of interest, but you won't be running yourself up into debt where you will get in trouble because you can't pay it off. And that should maintain your credit score.
And that requires incredible discipline.
Yep.
To just keep a little bit on that card, and then of course when you finally are in a situation where it doesn't look like you're really going to need that credit score anymore. I mean, one of the reasons why we don't worry about it is because we really are not in a place where we need it anymore, that a high credit score. But don't feel like you're going to be maintaining a credit balance the rest of your life. It's only until you get yourself launched and you can get started. But it means keeping track of what you're buying so that you're setting the money aside to pay it off. And if you can do it without having any balance that stays there month after month, that's the best. being able to pay it completely off. But if you feel like that is affecting the credit score too much, just keep it a small amount.
Right.
And keep on top of it. Remember, we don't want them strangling us with interest. You want to stay on top of it.
Now, she says in order to rent an apartment, buy a car, or apply for a mortgage, the first thing they do is check your credit.
Yes.
Yes, they're going to check your credit to rent an apartment. They're going to check your credit to apply for a mortgage. They will also check your credit to buy a car, but we don't recommend using credit for a car.
No.
What we recommend is drive an old junker until you can save enough money to buy a nice used car.
Right.
You can find really nice, really dependable used cars that are 10 or 12 years old that you can drive for 4 or 5 years until you can save, until you can buy a nicer one.
Right.
So
right.
we don't recommend buying a new car or getting any kind of financing on a car.
If you don't realize this already, I think most people maybe do, but if you don't realize it already, if you spend what nowadays $35,000 for a new car, it will depreciate a painful amount the second that it drives off the lot.
And for 2 or 3 years, you'll owe more on it than what you could sell it for.
Yes, yes. Lovely neighbor. But anyway, so it just buying a new car is just not financially a good idea. You are just throwing so much money down a black hole. So there are a lot of really nice vehicles out there that are used that are reasonably affordable, and just don't get yourself into that whole mess of some kind of huge payment on a car, because that really eats up the money that you have available to put toward getting yourself all set.
So if you're concerned about your credit score and you want to keep a high credit score so that you can qualify to rent or for a mortgage, here's the plan. Let's assume that you're in debt like most Americans. Then you've got a car payment and you've got some credit card payments and that sort of thing. Work as diligently as you can to get yourself completely debt-free. If you don't know how to do that, then watch the debt-free seminar that I taught. I'll put a link down below for that. It'll show you how to use what we call the roll-up program in order to get yourself completely out of debt. Then once you're completely out of debt...
And this is if you're renting. We're talking about someone who's renting.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you're going to want to maintain your credit score by using your credit cards and paying them off every month. How do you do that? This is very important. You don't just use your credit card and hope you're going to have enough at the end of the month.
Don't do that.
To pay it off. If you do that, you probably won't, because it's been proven through numerous studies that you spend about 2 to 2.5 times as much money using credit as you do using cash, because that's just
human nature.
Yeah. So what you do is every single time you use a credit card, you save the receipt, you take it home, and what we did, we actually have a separate fund that every time I spend, $27 for gas on a credit card, I bring the receipt home, I give it to her. She transfers the money from our general fund into our credit payment fund, so that at the end of the month, when we look at the balance on the credit card and we look at the amount in our credit payment fund, it matches exactly.
Yeah.
So that way we know that we have money to pay the bill.
Yeah.
And
we
so
don't spend money we don't already have.
If I'm going to use the credit card, I'll look at my general fund to make sure that I have money to pay for whatever it is I'm going to buy, and then once I buy it, I take it out of the general fund and transfer it into the debt or the credit payment fund. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, we have we actually set up an account, which is easy to transfer within our bank, and it's got kind of a spreadsheet that goes with it, and
a separate
bank account.
Yeah.
So that I have kind of a spreadsheet there where I am keeping track of having money for things that you pay periodically, like our taxes or different utility things or something like that would come up, insurance. And then there's a column there for paying off that one little Discover card that we have. And as soon as anything is going to be put on there, then that money is immediately transferred into that account.
Right.
So that I always have the money ahead, and then I can always pay the credit card.
Now, the link down below to the debt elimination seminar also includes, it's a playlist, and it also includes several videos we did about how to set up a budget, how to set up a spreadsheet with different columns. You can do it manually, or you can do it on an Excel spreadsheet. I cover all of that in there so that you know how to do that. And then, like she said, we have 2 different bank accounts, and it's very easy with online banking now just to go to the app for the bank and just transfer the funds from one account to the other. Very easy to do.
Yep. And then once that's all collected and it's time to pay the bill, I just transfer it back, and it's all set to pay it out.
So I hope, Polly, I hope that answers your question. How do you maintain your credit score and not run up any debt?
Right.
You pay everything through with cash, but you run it through your credit card to maintain that score.
But you're still living as close to nothing but cash as you possibly can.
Right.
You know, just if you have to maintain a balance, make it the smallest one you can do, and don't ever let it grow. And that takes discipline.
Yep.
It really does.
Most people that fail because they don't have the discipline to pay it off every month.
Yeah, it's just too easy. Well, I'll take care of it next month.
Yeah.
Just don't. Like I said the last time we did a video kind of like this. Look at that skull and crossbones on debt, and make sure you're the one that is using the system. Don't let the system use you.
Yeah.
It's true.
Now, does that pretty much cover that topic, you think?
Well, I think pretty much if someone needs that higher score. Also, I just want to mention, if you're just young and starting out, please be really careful how you're building up your credit. If you can just take your time and do it a little bit at a time and be very, very careful to not get yourself into debt, you're going to be very glad later on, because you're going to be able to create a decently good credit score but not have the burden of the debt.
Right. Now, this is all for when you're first starting to get established. You want to buy a house and you don't know how to do that sort of thing. Once you're established and once you're debt free, once you have your house paid for, your car is paid for, you will quite literally never need credit again. Never need the credit score. You won't care about your credit score, because if you follow my system of the roll-up, once you're completely debt free, including your mortgage, and you don't have any rent, then you've got a huge amount of discretionary funds that you didn't used to have when you had to pay all those debts. All of that discretionary fund can then go into a savings account. So if you have a house and for some reason you think you need to move or you want a bigger one, you'll be saving towards that, and saving significantly, so probably several $1,000s a month, if you're not making any debt payments. And so you can sell the house you have now, take all of the equity out of that, plus hopefully a significant amount of savings, and just buy another house. And the thing of it is, if you have cash to offer for somebody for a house, you can get really good deals, because you can offer something way below the asking price and say, cash, close in 7 days, no contingencies. And the seller will look at that, and then they'll look at somebody that's giving them the full asking price, but they have to get the credit, and it's going to take them 3 months to get
the loan.
I mean, the loan is going to take them 2 or 3 months to get the loan, and then the bank could come back with contingencies that they won't give the loan unless the seller does this and this and this to the house. And you come in with, an offer of $30,000 less, cash on the barrel, closed by the end of the week. Many times you can get a deal like that.
Well, think about a situation people are often in. They really need to sell the house they're in to buy the one they want to buy before they lose the one they want to buy.
Either they're just,
and that juggle is hard.
Even they're just buying a new one in the same area, but they got to sell the old one. How do you do that? Or they got a job somewhere else and they're moving. They got to. This is a big one, because they got to find a place to live where they're moving to, but they can't get rid of the old one. All of a sudden they have 2 mortgage payments, and many times they'll go under because of that. And if you can come in with cash, they'll usually take considerably less than what they're asking if you can just take it off their hands.
Well, because it's saving them so much money already,
right,
because you're coming in cash, and they're not going to be continuing to try to pay payments on something that it's just they can get it sold. And so anyway, it can be really good to come in and be able to offer somebody cash.
And some people will look at that situation and say, oh, you're just taking advantage of their hard times. No, no, no. You are saving them from their hard times, and they will be grateful, because you'll take that burden off of them, and they will. It will save their credit, because they won't have to go into foreclosure for one of the houses that they can't afford.
Right. Well, and of course we want to go into it with God's help, making sure they get the money they need and you get the best deal you can. The person that you're buying from is also important. So,
right.
But I mean, like I said, there people, can come down a little bit. from their asking price if they know they're not going to have to deal with the bank loan and all the hoopla. So yeah, and the closing costs are considerably simpler. So yeah, it's, and also as we look at this whole thing in terms of a home, because that's our biggest by far expense, and it's also the one thing in your life that's liable to require some credit more than anything else, just because it's such a large purchase. But you know, if we can look at, especially if you're sort of just starting out, or you're really trying to launch yourself from rental into home ownership, you know, don't start out with your dream home. You know, there's so many amazing creative ways of being able to get into a home. It's surprising sometimes the kind of deals you can really get on something. And you know, I've known young people, I wish we were this smart when we were young, who started out with a real fixer-upper, and then over time got it fixed up, got it to where they had a huge amount of equity in it, sold it, and were able to get something that was a little bit bigger and better, to the point where, well, this one person we know, while he was still in his 30s, bought his home cash. He was completely out of debt with a very nice home for his family, cash.
Because I think, what, 3 times or 4 times he had bought a house and rolled it over, and every time he went a little bit bigger and made a little bit more until he got to the point where he could buy his current home.
But he never
cash.
got himself into a heavy debt. He did it very, very carefully. He took the money he had earned and put it into another one, you know. And anyway, but the point is, when you start out, just think about it. How big of a house do you really need? You know, could you get something that maybe is going to need, you know, some TLC? Now, I'm not talking major stuff unless you've got money for it, but it certainly isn't, you know, let's say it's not as beautiful as you might want it to be. Well, it's amazing what some paint and just some loving care and fixing up and some yard work can do to make a place really pleasant.
Right.
But just think about how big of a place do you really need? And, you know, if you can start out with something that isn't going to take, you know, maybe you can save long enough, he'll be talking about this in a moment here, you can save long enough to just buy it outright cash. Well, then if you find something else, you know, this is a scenario I can think of, okay? Tell them about what you're talking about with, what if you wanted to have $150,000 to buy a house?
Well, that's what I was about to go into.
Okay.
You're getting me ahead of myself.
Why don't you talk about that, and then I'll go back to what I was going to say.
So the next topic that we wanted to address is it possible to buy a house for cash the first time? And yes, it is. And so here's how you would do that. If, say, you're renting, okay, you've got these other debts, a car payment or 2, credit cards or 2 or 3 or 5.
Just a typical situation.
Yeah. Use my debt-free or debt elimination strategy to get completely out of debt except for your rent, because that's not debt, that's an expense.
Right.
And we do what's called the roll-up method. So you pay off one debt if you're paying $50 on that credit card. When you pay it off, instead of just letting that $50 go back into the general fund, you start applying it to the next debt. And then, so now you're paying, instead of $100 on the second debt, you're paying $150. When that's done, then you take that $150 and roll it over into the next debt. By the time you get to the point where you're completely debt-free except for your mortgage, except for your rent, that amount that you're paying on your monthly debt payment could be significant. So let's say it's $1,200 because you've paid off your cars, you've paid off your credit cards.
And you know what? That's not that unusual, $1,200.
So now you're completely out of debt. The only thing that you have is your rent that you're paying, and then you have $1,200 a month that you used to be paying on debts that you can now save. So many people would think, and I used to think this too, that I want to go buy a house because when I spend rent, that money's just going down the trash. It's wasted money. I want to be buying a house. But here's the thing. For those of you who have ever had a mortgage, have you looked at your mortgage payments? In the first 5 years, most of your payments are going to interest. So let's just pick a number. Now, this is probably low for a lot of the part of the country, but I want to talk about the concepts rather than the dollar amounts. So let's say you're making a $1,000 mortgage payment. If you look at your mortgage payment, you're going to see that $900 of it is probably going to interest at the beginning.
Oh, easily.
So what that means is that if you're paying $1,000 for your mortgage, or you're paying $1,000 for your rent, Your rent is $1,000 totally gone. Your mortgage is $900 totally gone. So you're not saving that much towards your house by having a mortgage, only $100. So if you just stay in your apartment and you rent, and you just start saving your discretionary funds that you used to pay for debts, $1,200 a month, in 10 years you can save $150,000. And that's in some parts of the country, that's enough to buy a house cash. In other parts of the country, that's enough to put a significant down payment on it. Or if you want to only save for 5 years and then come up with, $75,000 to put down, now you're still maintaining your FICO score because you're using your credit cards but paying them off every month, so you still got good credit.
And you got good rental history.
If you can put, if you can put $75,000 down, you're going to be able to lower your payments or go with a 20-year mortgage instead of a 30-year mortgage and save a lot of interest, that sort of thing. So it is infinitely possible to buy a house cash if you have the patience to do it.
And what I was thinking about before was, let's say there's a really brand new young family and they've got small children, and they've got a house where the kids are sharing bunk beds, and they know that this house is going to work great, but probably by the time the kids are teenagers, they're going to kind of wish they had a little bit more room, for the family. And so, 10 years down the line, I'd like to be able to know that I can get a bigger place for my family. Well, that gives you 10 years then to get yourself in as good a shape as possible to be able to go out and really either buy a house or put something very significant down, and to be able to go into something that's going to be a little bit better for your family. And just like on his debt freedom thing too, is that if a person does end up with a really big down payment and they've still got a mortgage they're taking care of, then there are ways that you can still continue to put extra payments on that mortgage and pay it off much, much faster, which is what we've done.
Right. What was the number of $1,200 a month that you're saving? 5 years from now, then you use the $75,000 as a big down payment on a house to buy a house, and then you continue to take that $1,200 a month that you were saving and put it on top of your regular mortgage payment, and then you can get that thing paid off very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Now, here's the cool thing. Really cool. What happens when you're completely debt-free, including your mortgage, because you had the patience to pay things off, to save for 5 years or 10 years to get into a house completely cash or very low mortgage that you paid off quickly? In order to be financially solvent and successful in the future, you have to make sacrifices now. And that's very hard for young people to make those sacrifices because they see that new whatever it is and they want it now. They want to enjoy life. But if you have the patience to sacrifice now and you get debt free, including your mortgage, including your cars, then you've got all of this money that everybody else is wasting on debt payments, and that's just fritter money. That's that's investment money. You can take all of that money, the amount of the mortgage plus the amount of the car payments and stuff that you're not making, you could put that onto a second house to have a second rental income. And you can buy houses by rolling them over. Every time you pay one off, you buy another one, you put the payments on the next one. And you can get yourself into a considerably more comfortable financial situation later in life where you have the financial freedom to do whatever you want. Or you can stay in debt now, and you'll be in debt for the rest of your life, and you'll retire broke. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Just statistics, that's just facts. Yeah. And one thing that's wonderful too, let's say that someone has kept things pretty simple through their 20s and into their 30s and has managed to become debt free. You're getting into some of your best earning years. You can just try your best to keep your lifestyle as simple as possible. You don't have to upgrade all the time. Keep in a home that you can handle, keep vehicles that are nice but not fancy and new, and then you have money that you can sock away. Now the beautiful thing is that yes, you can put that toward investment, but you don't have to wait until you're going to be old and gray to finally say, well, now I've got some money, I can enjoy myself. because this is this money is not owed to anything, this extra money. So if you want to just set yourself up where you've got an amount that you just tuck away, and then other amount that you use for investment, you know, that money that you're kind of setting aside can make dreams like a trip to New Zealand possible,
or a
cruise, or
Alaska cruise,
or maybe you really do have been really wanting to buy that boat, or you know, there's just all sorts of things where you can kind of save toward it, a big vacation for the family, things you can really enjoy, but you're not going into debt for it. Everything else is paid for. In other words, you know your bills are being covered, and you can actually relax and enjoy using this money that you've set aside just to enjoy. And that's not a bad thing to have no worry in your 30s, 40s, 50s, all that time. No 20s, you know, whatever, but no worry about, oh, can I pay my bills? Can I pay this debt? You know, I'm getting in trouble here. You know that your finances are in order, and then when you can spend money, you can really enjoy it. You know, I'm the fuss budget about money in this family, and if I didn't know we had the money, I would not be enjoying how much fun it's been to build that little room that we've needed so badly.
She gets a stomach ache every time we spend money.
I do.
But you know what? We're spending thousands on this edition, and she's not getting a stomach ache.
No, because the money's there,
right,
and it's not taking away from something else I need to take care of. You know, I have money set aside for any extra medical bills. I've got money set aside for Christmas. We've got money set aside in case we have vehicle issues. And so I know that this money that we're putting into this edition that's going to make my life so much better, I can afford it, and so I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know.
So can you tell we're passionate about living debt-free? And we want everybody that we know to experience the freedom of that.
Yeah. And we just felt this was such a good, solid question.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we do live in a world where if you want to rent something, you know, you have to have some kind of a credit score, or certainly not a bad one. And if you ever want to get into a house, often that's something you have to look at. You know, now people think you have to have a regular credit card to rent a car. By the way, we've never found that to be true.
No, we've always rented cars when we travel using debit cards, and it's always worked.
Yeah.
There's only one company, car company, I found that they said right on their website they don't take debit cards.
Yeah.
So I just went to another one. It's
Yep.
not been an issue. And we travel a lot.
Yeah.
We fly a lot. So to as Polly, I hope that answers your question. And to anyone else who's wondering if it's possible to actually buy a house cash, yes it is. I hope that answers your question. And I've really loved the feedback that we've gotten from these debt-free videos that we've been doing. So many of you are already debt-free and expressing how wonderful it is. And many more of you are working on it, and that just gives me a thrill.
We just know the difference it can make.
So thanks for watching, everybody.
Live simple.
Live free. You be blessed.
And we love you, and we will see you soon. More house building coming up.
Yep. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.